A young Russian teenager, full of dreams, vanished in Ireland, her life stolen by tragedy, and two young perpetrators left a community in shock. Anastasia, affectionately known as Anna, was born on February 18, 2004, in the industrial city of Novokuznetsk, Russia. Her earliest years were marked by hardship. For her first 2 years, Anna lived in an orphanage, surrounded by uncertainty, but cared for by staff who worked to provide stability. Those early days would change forever when she was adopted by Geraldine and Patrick Kriegel, an Irish couple who had longed for a child of their own. They brought her home to Ireland, and from that moment, Anna's life became filled with new opportunities, love, and a strong sense of belonging. Geraldine, a senior manager at CIE, and Patrick, a French teacher, were devoted parents who not only embraced Anna as their daughter, but also honored her Russian heritage. They celebrated both her birthday and her adoption day every year, creating traditions that reinforced her identity. Within the household, Anna was cherished as their first child, and her parents took pride in her bright, spirited nature. Anna developed many interests that reflected her creativity. She loved swimming, singing, and dancing, often immersing herself in activities that brought her joy. However, her health presented obstacles. She faced partial hearing loss, vision difficulties, and painful bone growth that required medical attention. Despite these challenges, Anna approached life with sensitivity and affection, demonstrating a resilience that inspired her parents. Yet, beneath her enthusiasm, Anna's vulnerabilities were clear. Teachers and her family recognized how deeply she felt emotions and worried about her tendency to be easily hurt by others. Standing at 5 feet 8 inches tall by the age of 13, she was physically different from many of her peers. Unfortunately, her appearance and adoption became the focus of cruel taunts. Some classmates mocked her height, while others made hurtful remarks about her not having real parents. These comments deeply wounded Anna, whose gentle spirit longed for acceptance. Geraldine and Patrick documented the messages and repeatedly engaged with the school, hoping to shield their daughter from bullying. But despite their efforts, the situation persisted. Anna's early years thus revealed two contrasting realities: the warmth of a family who loved her dearly, and the cruelty of a world that often failed to understand her. These constant remarks left her feeling different from her peers and increasingly isolated. At a time when she longed for acceptance, she was instead singled out, carrying the burden of cruel treatment that few adults could fully protect her from. One incident at a school disco marked a particularly traumatic turning point. Pressured by a boy and touched inappropriately, Anna left shaken and vulnerable. Although the boy was formally cautioned by police, the experience had a lasting emotional impact, deepening her sense of insecurity. For a young teenager already struggling with bullying, this event added another painful layer to her challenges. Anna's inner turmoil sometimes appeared in symbolic ways. On one occasion, she painted a black eye on her own face, a striking signal of the emotional distress she carried. Conflicts at school escalated into fights and suspensions, consequences that further compounded her loneliness. What she wanted most was friendship and belonging, yet her efforts were often met with rejection. Her desperation grew evident in troubling ways. Anna created fake social media accounts to send cruel messages to herself, highlighting the depth of her struggles and her deteriorating mental health. Geraldine, deeply concerned, began monitoring her online activity in hopes of shielding her from further harm. By 2018, the pressures became overwhelming. Schoolwork demanded attention, but so too did the relentless bullying, both face-to-face and online. Even her small creative outlet on YouTube, where she shared videos about dance, makeup, and fashion, was invaded by cruelty. Strangers sent threats and told her she should die, words no young person should ever have to read. Anna's teenage years, instead of being defined by growth and discovery, became consumed by the weight of harassment. On Sunday, May 13, 2018, the day before her disappearance, Anna spent time at home with her mother. She and Geraldine watched films together and prepared for a family gathering. That same day, she filmed a YouTube video with her cousin. In the recording, she appeared cheerful, smiling for the camera, even as she continued to receive unkind and threatening messages online. By late evening, she went to bed after 10:30 p.m., closing what seemed like an ordinary day. The following morning, Monday, May 14th, began quietly. Anna reminded her mother of her scheduled counseling appointment, showing that she was attentive to her routine. Geraldine kissed her goodbye before leaving for work in Dublin, unaware of the events that would soon unfold. Around midday, Anna returned home for lunch, then attended her youth counseling session as planned. She returned home once again at 4:02 p.m. Shortly afterward, she briefly spoke with Geraldine on the phone, a call that seemed normal at the time. At 4:55 p.m., Boy B arrived at the family's door, asking for Anna. She did not know him well, yet she agreed to go. Putting on her distinctive black and white hoodie, Anna smiled at her father before stepping outside. Together, she and Boy B walked towards St. Catherine's Park, a familiar area near her home. This was the last time Anna's parents saw her alive. The ordinary rhythms of family life gave way to a moment that would soon mark the beginning of a devastating search. When Anna did not respond to her mother's calls that evening, Geraldine's concern quickly turned into alarm. She sent a series of texts warning Anna that if she did not return home, the Gardaí would be contacted. Despite her efforts, there was still no reply. Geraldine went out to search St. Catherine's Park and drove through nearby areas, but there was no sign of her daughter. By nightfall, both parents were deeply worried. Patrick and Geraldine tried to gather information about Boy B, searching for him on Facebook. Their knowledge of him was limited, and no clear answers appeared. Realizing the urgency of the situation, they sought guidance from retired Detective John Cribben, who advised them to go directly to the Gardaí. At the station, Geraldine explained how unusual Anna's silence was. Anna had always kept close contact, and it was not like her to ignore calls or messages. Gardaí quickly understood that this was more than a typical case of a teenager not returning home. They began speaking with Boy B, who initially claimed that he had accompanied Anna to the park but left her there at 5:40 p.m. The following day, May 15th, the search widened. Gardaí issued a public press release with Anna's description, urging anyone with information to come forward. Teams combed the park and nearby areas, searching for clues. As questioning continued, Boy B's account raised doubts. When pressed further, he admitted he had gone to the park at the request of Boy A. He acknowledged later that he encouraged her to come with him, knowing Boy A was waiting, though he claimed he did not understand the reason. This change in testimony drew investigators' attention to the possibility that Anna had been deliberately lured. Investigators then turned their attention to Boy A, who insisted that Anna liked him but denied having any feelings in return. During park reenactments, Gardaí noticed inconsistencies. Both boys seemed uneasy, glancing toward each other instead of confidently describing events. Boy A also bore unexplained injuries, which he claimed came from strangers, an explanation investigators found doubtful. By May 16th, 3 days after Anna's disappearance, the Gardaí escalated their response. Inspector Mark O'Neill was placed in charge of the operation, supported by specialized teams. Sub-aqua divers were deployed to search waterways, mobile phone data analysts examined digital traces, and civil defense units joined the ground effort. The scale of the search reflected the growing conviction that this was no longer a routine missing person case. Attention increasingly focused on the two boys last seen with Anna. Boy B continued to repeat that he had simply walked her to the park and left her there, claiming to know nothing more. His consistent but limited statements raised suspicions, especially given the circumstances of Anna's disappearance. Boy A offered a more elaborate account. He told Gardaí that Anna had asked him out, and when he declined, she supposedly walked away. Investigators noted, however, that his story contained troubling gaps. His visible injuries did not match the explanation he gave of being attacked by strangers. No evidence supported his claim of such an assault. CCTV footage and eyewitness interviews were thoroughly reviewed. Nothing placed Anna outside the park, and nothing supported Boy A's version of events. His account remained uncorroborated, while his demeanor raised further doubts. Reenactments in the park deepened Garda concerns. Both boys were asked to retrace their steps. Instead of confidently recounting events, they exchanged glances, as if looking for cues from each other. This behavior suggested unease and hinted at information being concealed. By now, investigators had concluded that the boys were not simply witnesses. Their conflicting stories, evasive mannerisms, and lack of supporting evidence pointed to direct involvement in what had happened. The investigation was no longer about searching for a missing teenager. It had shifted decisively toward uncovering the truth behind a suspected crime. Every lead now suggested that Anna's disappearance involved far more than either boy was willing to admit. This stage of the inquiry marked the turning point. With their attention fixed on boy A and boy B, the Gardaí began piecing together the reality that Anna's fate had been shaped by the actions of the very individuals who first appeared to be helping. With the search in full motion, Garda investigators shifted their focus toward formal interviews. Both boys were brought in separately, giving them opportunities to explain their roles in Anna's disappearance. Boy B told Gardaí that he had only gone to Anna's home at boy A's request. He said he merely walked her to the park and then left her there. His account presented himself as little more than a messenger, unaware of what might have happened afterward. Yet his hesitant manner suggested he was holding something back. Boy A, on the other hand, insisted that Anna had expressed an interest in him, and that after he declined, she walked away on her own. He continued to claim that he knew nothing about what followed. His calmness contrasted sharply with the nervous energy displayed by boy B, but investigators quickly noticed that the details of his story did not align with the evidence available. Central to Garda concerns were the injuries visible on boy A. He explained them as the result of an assault by unknown men, but the account raised doubts. The timing, nature, and lack of corroboration made investigators increasingly skeptical. When both boys were brought back to the park for reenactments, Gardaí paid close attention to their behavior. Instead of offering clear and consistent recollections, the two frequently glanced at one another, as though silently checking their responses. These small but telling actions heightened suspicions. Through careful questioning, investigators pressed for clarity. While neither boy openly admitted involvement, both appeared reluctant to share the full truth. Their conflicting accounts stood at the heart of the inquiry. This phase of the investigation revealed what Gardaí had already begun to suspect. The boys were not simply bystanders. Their shifting narratives and uneasy behavior suggested a deeper knowledge of events. The careful and methodical interviews marked an important step toward unraveling the truth of Anna's disappearance. As Gardaí continued their questioning, boy B's story evolved further. He admitted he had witnessed boy A attack Anna at the disused farmhouse, but claimed he was too afraid to intervene. This confession, combined with phone data confirming their movements and timelines, cemented the understanding that Anna had been deliberately lured and murdered. Digital evidence contradicted earlier statements, showing both boys traveling directly toward the farmhouse after leaving the park. On May 17, 2018, the search reached its tragic conclusion. Garda search teams discovered Anna's body inside a disused farmhouse near Lucan, County Dublin. Her body was naked, and her face was partly covered by her own hair. Forensic specialists secured the scene and collected critical evidence. Clothing, personal items, and DNA traces directly linked boy A to the attack. Phone history further confirmed both boys' presence at the location at crucial times. Later that day, Gardaí brought the case to the Director of Public Prosecutions, who authorized formal charges. Boy A was charged with the murder of Anna Kriegel and with aggravated assault. Boy B was charged with his role in luring Anna from her home to the location where she was later attacked. This marked the official transition from suspicion to prosecution. Both accused were juveniles, and their identities were legally protected. Court proceedings were conducted under strict reporting restrictions, reflecting the sensitivity of the case. In April 2019, the trial of boy A and boy B began at the Central Criminal Court in Dublin. Both defendants were anonymized due to their ages. The prosecution argued that Boy B had lured Anna from her home at Boy A's request, and Boy A carried out the attack that led to her death. Evidence included forensic samples, torn clothing, belongings, and phone data confirming timelines. The defense challenged evidence, emphasizing the youth of the defendants and questioning intent. Boy B eventually admitted witnessing the attack, but said fear prevented him from helping. The trial was highly publicized, as it marked the first time children faced trial for the murder of another child in Ireland. Forensic findings were central. Anna's torn clothing and DNA linked Boy A to the scene. Phone records contradicted parts of the boy's statements and confirmed movements. Pathologists concluded that her death was caused by blunt force trauma and strangulation. These findings confirmed both the violence of the attack and the deliberate involvement of the two boys. On May 31, 2018, Anna's funeral was held at Newlands Cross Crematorium. Family, friends, dance troupe members, and the local community attended, celebrating her life and creativity. Attendees wore sparkle and color at the family's request, reflecting Anna's personality. A Russian flag and traditional doll honored her birth heritage. Donations were encouraged for the Russian-Irish Adoption Support Group. Memorials and vigils followed in St. Catherine's Park, ensuring Anna's memory continued to be honored alongside the ongoing legal process.